Welcome, one and all, to this very special Quickfire Chaos Clip Show! Hey everyone, it's Derek back at it with the second installment of the Quickfire Chaos compilation episodes. This one is the everything else. Check D if all of the above. So this is going to be everything that wasn't part of just the regular roleplay that we were doing as part of it. So the other kind of half of the episodes. Really excited for everybody to hear it. It's always fun to listen through. This one obviously is kind of a mixed bag. It's not specifically about roleplay. It's not specifically about game design. It's about a lot of different things, but there's some game design and stuff mixed in there. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to listen back and pick up on the fun ideas they had and, see how their brain works when it comes to the stuff that they're good at or passionate about. Because these ended up being so long, I've decided to split it up into two parts. So this is part one, and part two you can listen to right after this. So yeah, it'll be more condensed this way, probably a little bit more commentary for me. But yeah, the kind of other genre tended to last a little bit longer. And so that's the result. But that means 3 bonus episodes instead of 2 in between seasons. So that's good for everybody. Speaking of next season, I believe I have settled on Wednesday, September 14th as the kickoff date for that. So be on the lookout for announcements about that. I'll probably announce the guests on Monday like I do. So Monday the 12th, I should be announcing who my guest is or guests are. Spoiler alert there. For Wednesday the 14th. And between now and then, just keep listening to the old episodes you really liked and enjoy your time. One more quick thing before we begin. My buddy Matthew and I, he's in my normal game group. We are actually working on something really fun. I think it's going to turn into a Kickstarter, so be on the lookout for that. And if you are interested in learning more, pay attention to wherever I post stuff, and in the coming few weeks I should be posting some more information like a landing page where we can collect your email address if you're interested in learning more about it. And just be paying attention to that. It should be a lot of fun. It's going to be some additional rules and maybe a little one-shot for the rules. And the playtesting has gone super well. My home group, we all playtested it. We had a ton of fun. We'll probably be releasing some of the video that we took during that just as part of the marketing materials. So you'll get to see all of us having an absolute blast. So yeah, be on the lookout for that information. But I think that is it for me. I lied. A couple of last things. Number one, I was invited to the Next to Nothing podcast. So go ahead and check that out. That should be in my link tree underneath my guest appearances, or you can go check out the Next to Nothing podcast. They post their videos on YouTube, or they post the audio on your podcatcher app. So go ahead and check that out. We chatted about Spelljammer. We chatted about DMing on a budget, some free and cheaper things to do to help improve your players' immersion into the game that you're running. And then within the next couple weeks after this releases, you should be hearing from me about another appearance on a show called Thinking Critically, which is hosted by my friend Danilo in the UK. So yeah, I had a good chat with him, and that should be coming out in the next few weeks after this releases too. So yeah, just be on the lookout for a couple more of my guest spots, chatting more about the game that we love, and be on the lookout for the Kickstarter coming up too. That is all for announcements. Let's go ahead and jump into the fun stuff. Let's start things with my Season 2 kickoff guest, which is Johnny Stanton, fullback for the Cleveland Browns. He is, as I am recording this, currently doing preseason games, so he is practicing with the team and everything. It looks like he's probably going to make the roster. I know he signed a contract with them at the end of last year. So yeah, really excited to see what he does. And it was a ton of fun to chat with him about gaming and about playing in the NFL and all sorts of other cool stuff. So let's start there. So there's a new formed league that's coming up. It's the Neverwinter Football League.
Which, by the way, when I was doing a little bit of prep for this, I decided if we weren't just going straight Neverwinter, I thought we could maybe like Waterdeep. I could be the Waterdeep team. You could be like the Neverwinter team.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I was thinking the Neverwinter Nightmares versus the Waterdeep Wyverns.
Ooh.
If you want to, I'll happily be the Waterdeep Wyverns.
Yeah, it could be like a flaming horse logo, and your wyvern could be like the dragon from below or something. That's sweet. I love it. And so Johnny and I have been asked to coach, and we are scouting out for players with some race and class combinations and kind of give a reason why we think they'd be good at that position. So
I'm gonna bring up the race page on so I can have like the whole list of everything.
Yeah, there you go. I pulled from kind of a few more standard races just because those are the ones I'm more familiar with, but I'm sure we could get wild with this. All right, so quarterbacking for my team, I decided to go find myself a halfling divination wizard. And the reason why is, number one, I think a halfling playing quarterback would be cool, kind of getting Russell Wilson vibes from this, quick and sneaky, but also halflings are lucky, and so they can't roll nat ones, and then divination wizards can see the future and roll a few dice every day. And so I think it'd be cool to have a quarterback who can see the rush coming and see the defensive packages coming and know how to deal with them before it even happens. So that's my quarterback pick. What about you?
I like that. And I like the you get a little bit of extra dexterity in there if you're playing the more standard rules where they have the racial bonuses. You definitely it's like a good, smart, outside the pocket quarterback, which I think is a great idea. So I think getting somebody who can also be the face of the franchise, somebody who is a good representative for your team, is important in having a quarterback. So I'm going to go with a half elf Oath of Glory paladin, somebody who you can have. The quarterback will always take the majority of the credit for when you're doing well, and will always take the majority of the blame for when you're doing bad. So if you can have somebody who can really kind of upsell the rest of your team and can really be charismatic in front of the camera, it can ease the bad times. It can really promote the good times for your team. So that's why I'm going to go with a half elf Oath of Glory paladin.
I love it. I can see their hair flowing in the wind right now at the presser.
Oh yeah.
Next up, for my running back, my tailback, I picked a Tabaxi Rogue. And the reason I picked a Tabaxi is because they are very quick and they have some extra movement there. And I picked a Rogue because they can use some of their bonus actions to dash, to disengage, to dodge, that kind of stuff. So I think that having a really tricksy running back like that who can get themselves out of sticky situations would be really beneficial. See the holes, be able to get around and dodge some tackles on the way.
I think it's a great choice.
Yeah.
I might have a similar choice further down on my list. For a running back, I'm looking at the D&D Beyond Races page right now because I think both of these could be good choices for different reasons, or actually kind of for similar reasons. A Centaur, I think, would be a good choice. I think it'd be, having a strong running back is really important to be able to burst through the line, especially on goal line, short yardage packages. I'm liking that. I was also thinking Minotaur. I think a Minotaur is a little bit better for maybe a linebacker hitting hard in the backfield. I know we're just doing offense right now, but let me think for a race. All right, then I'm going to go with a Centaur Rogue, which I feel like might be one of the first times that's ever gone together. But a Centaur Rogue, you'd be able to get that dash bonus action, slippery, having a horse. The best running backs I think are the really big, strong running backs who can slip through tackles. Like how is the guy that big moving so fluidly and slippery? So if you can get a Centaur Rogue, I think that'd be a pretty good one. Maybe a Thief Rogue or Swashbuckler. It could be never make a one-on-one tackle.
Like Derrick Henry, but if he had 4 legs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you don't want to tackle that.
Nope, I do not. All right, next up, fullback, which is your position. I wanted to make sure I did you justice. I know you're a lot taller than this, but I chose Dwarf Fighter. So I'm thinking Dwarf Fighter because they've got that second wind, so they got extra stamina. They have a little bit of wisdom boost, so they can be really smart with their blocking and that kind of thing. And then they can also do a couple of extra attacks if they've got more than one person they need to block and deal with during the play. But, dwarves, I feel like, are really underrated and versatile. Definitely. So that's my choice.
I definitely wish that I played more dwarves because dwarves are very fun to play. For my choice for fullback, I like yours a lot. I'm going to go with a turtle.
Ooh.
A lot, fullbacks oftentimes have the biggest pads of any of the skill position guys. You have that hard shell armor. You're going to need it for the hits that you're laying out. And I'm going to actually go with a barbarian, and I'm going to go with a Path of the Berserker barbarian because we like to hit hard. I was thinking about maybe Battle Rager, But if you're a turtle, you're not going to have really that spiked armor, unless you hammer some spikes in there, which actually be pretty cool idea for a character.
That would be cool.
If the Path of the Battle Rager wasn't such a bad subclass. So yeah, I'm going to go with Turtle Path of the Berserker Barbarian.
Sweet, I love it. All right, next up, tight end. For my tight end, I chose a Goliath Barbarian. Barbarian for the obvious reasons: big, strong, fast, can rage. And I think I chose Goliath because they're huge, really tall, easy target for the end zone or for coming across the middle. Great for short yardage situations, but they can also move fast enough to get down the field if you're trying to throw it longer. So yeah, that's my choice.
For mine, I'm going to go with a little bit of an interesting choice here. In my opinion, I'm going to go with a Bugbear. Now, I'm going with Bugbear because one of the best things about Bugbear is they have that long-limbed feature.
Ooh.
You get extra 5 feet to your range. You want your tight ends to be big, long, high catch radius guys who can really, make their presence known in the middle of the field. You're never going to get the biggest hit on tight end because they're just too tough. And I'm going to go with a Ranger because I think Rangers have a lot of versatility to them. They're casters. They can be melee characters. They can be ranged characters. A tight end has to be versatile. You have to be able to block with as good as an O lineman. You have to be able to catch as good as a receiver. I'm going to go with a Monster Slayer Ranger because you're dealing with the big DNs there when you're blocking, and those guys are monsters, and you have to be able to deal with the monsters, and you got to be a Monster Slayer.
Yeah, speaking of Monster Slayers, we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about one of your games you played recently, but football games, not D&D games. But yeah, all right. Next up is the receivers. My first one is an Air Genasi Druid because they can shapeshift, and then Air Genasis get a bunch of extra stuff just because of where they're from. So I feel like you could shapeshift and get really far away. You could fly up and be an easy target away from the defense. And I think Druids have a lot of wisdom as well, knowing how to get open and being able to use some of their spells to entangle the defensive backs they're up against and get open.
I love it. I'm going to go with Tabaxi here because as important as speed is to a running back, to a receiver, it's even more so to be able to outrun the best corners who are really the fastest guys in the field. I'm going to go with the Tabaxi, and I'm going to go with Monk because you get even more speed than a rogue does. You get that step in the wind, you get that extra movement speed, you get to double that movement with your Tabaxi. I think somebody's done the math where if you play a Tabaxi Monk, you can end up like breaking the speed of sound if you have a wizard helping you. So it's pretty ridiculous. I'm going to go with the downfield threat of the Tabaxi Monk. And the other thing with the Monk, you get the deflect missiles, and if you roll high enough, you get to catch it. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, you could also use patient defense and break some tackles. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, my last receiver is going to be an Aasimar Cleric, and I'm thinking probably Tempest Cleric. At higher levels, they can get wings in general, but Aasimars also have wings on their back, so they can fly. And then Tempest Clerics would be awesome because you could use some of your thunder and lightning abilities to get rid of defenders and to stun people that you're up against, and strike lightning from the sky when you score a touchdown as a celebration. So that'd be pretty sweet.
That'd be a pretty sweet celebration.
Yeah, it would.
All right, for my last choice, I'm going to go with an Aarakocra College of Glamour Bard. Just throw it up to the guy. He's going to catch it. He's going to, you got the flying speed. You're going to be able to go up and catch that thing. High dexterity. You're going to do fine with an Aarakocra at receiver. But I feel like that's too easy of a choice. I decided what you want for your receivers is to be great route runners. You want them to be deceptive in that route running. And who's a better deceiver than a bard? And when your receiver is oftentimes, if your quarterback's not the face of the franchise, oftentimes it's the receiver. He's the guy who ends up, if you're the TO, the Chad Johnsons of the world, you're kind of in front of the camera of a lot. You end up being, considered like the pretty guy on the team. Got to go with the College of Glamour Bard to be able to really talk a lot in front of the camera. But you're kind of there also to be a pretty face for the media, and you got to have those deceptive route running abilities, and a Bard will get you there.
When you said College of Glamour, I immediately thought of Chad Johnson and Tio. That's so funny. Yeah. Oh, they definitely have the reputations. All right, sweet. So I think it'll be a really good season. Looking forward to when we match up against each other.
Go Wyverns.
Wow. So this was the very first person I decided to try to do Quickfire Chaos with, is Johnny Stanton. I had kind of decided that I would do two different parts, right? I would do role play with some people, and I would do like specific stuff for people who are really into like specific niche things. I could have done some role playing with Johnny. I think he would have been really good at it, but I love American football, and so I really wanted to chat with him about that. And I thought that building a fantasy football team would be the most fun way to do it. And boy, did he blow me away. First of all, coming up with a team name like, okay, I'm gonna be the Waterdeep Wyverns and you can be the Neverwinter Nightmares. Like he like thought of mascots for the teams and stuff. And then he put a ton of time and like thought into building his team instead of just kind of showing up and winging it. And I really respect that. And funny enough, a few weeks later, maybe like a month or two later, Johnny and I actually were on the same episode of Dragon Talk, the official Dungeons and Dragons podcast made by Wizards, and they asked him a similar question, not exactly the same, right? And when I was recording with Shelly, who's one of the hosts of the show, I mentioned, oh yeah, Johnny said he was going to be on the show, and I wonder when it's going to be. She's like, oh, it's going to be the same episode as you. So kind of serendipitous. We ended up on the same episode. They also asked him about fantasy football stuff, so pretty funny. Anyway, that was such a fun experience. Let's move on now to my friend and the creator of the Caltrop Core system, which has been kind of spreading around the TTRPG community like wildfire. And that is my friend Lex. All right, so we're going to start with the theme and the setting. So I just have this random website up, and I'm going to click, and then you're just going to tell me when to stop, and whatever I stop on, we'll pick that theme and setting, okay? So I'm going to start now.
Cool. Stop.
Okay, this is good. Theme is tragedy. Setting is steampunk.
Okay.
So a steampunk tragedy. Next, do you have a D10? And if not, you can just pick a number between 1 and 10.
I rolled a 10.
Okay, protect the peace. So we've got a steampunk tragedy, and the goal of the characters is to protect the peace, whatever that means. So, yeah, what are you thinking for this game? How would you kind of flesh it out a little bit?
So, steampunk tragedy is, I feel like, not super weird. So that's good to work with.
Right.
We can make it weird. We can make it really weird.
We could make it weird.
What kind of... Okay, steampunk tragedy. I'm going to steal from my own setting. What if the world... It's like a post-apocalypse. So there's the tragedy. And most of the land is flooded. So it's all flooded. And the steampunk part is that the remnants of the world travel around on like hot air balloons, and they go from like big ones where there's just like, maybe you have like
Zeppelins,
almost like an apartment. Yeah. You can even have like dozens of people, or maybe you could have it really big where it's like hundreds of people that live on this floating airship. You could make it a survival game where you have to land on certain areas. There's not a lot of like growable food.
Right, resources.
So you have to land on these areas, get resources, maybe figure out how to do farming on the top of your Zeppelin or something, do some sort of greenhouse thing.
That would be really cool.
It could be all sorts
of...
Like
the top half of it or whatever. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, you could have and it'd be clear, you could look into it.
Yes.
You could have
oh man,
the threat of like sky pirates, because you always want to have sky pirates if you can.
Of course.
If you can have sky pirates, you should have sky pirates. That's rule number 1 of game design, I think.
You heard it here first, folks.
So you could do it on an individual level where you and the players are individuals on the ship. You could also go, I think Ironsworn does this, where it's like more of like a whole group, a whole like civilization or a whole tribe of people that you're role playing and working with, so that it could be on a civilization type of level. But I think tragedy is better felt like on an individual level. What do you think?
Yeah, what came to my mind immediately was like some kind of like police or peacekeeping force, but the tragedy is that you're all trying to pay a debt because you are like part machines or something, and so you owe the government. But I love the airship idea too, so trying to keep the peace. Sky Pirates is good, so maybe you're like a traveling entity that's supposed to keep the peace. Or maybe there's infighting on the ship. There's like 2 factions or 3 factions on the ship, and some of them say, we need to fly this direction because there's like a safe haven there, and others are like, no, that's not real, we need to go this way. And you've got like the people who are like scientific or denying the science or religious, and you've got to like figure out a way to work between all of them.
I really like that, actually, because there's plenty of steampunk adventures that would feed into this. I think, actually, Polaris by Bogus Cheesecake is a great, wonderful, soft post-apocalypse setting for 5e. So go do that. I think that the faction idea actually is really cool. And maybe one of the factions is like, we should become sky pirates. And some people are like, we should be stealing from other people. We should be doing whatever it takes to survive. And some people have this. And so maybe you could have mechanics. This one seems like if we're going to do like the intense close quarters RP style, I would do a token system instead of a stats system.
Right, like trading
because
tokens kind of thing.
You can do trading tokens. You can have the tokens represent either physical resources, even like emotional or political capital, almost like. So like in Nighthawks, you can gain tokens by dreaming of the future, of like daydreaming about like how life could be. You can get tokens by starting a conversation with another character, and then you can spend tokens to sort of bolster your essentially what would be like health, but it's your isolation die, and you want it to go up and not down, basically. And so you can spend tokens to make that die tick up. And so I think for like those like intimate, almost somber themes of games, tokens, and I got this all from Wanderhome. Big influences on me were Wanderhome and Lumen, which I read before. If you've read Lumen and read Caltrop, it should be very clear the influences from Spencer's SRD to mine. And then also Wanderhome, which taught, if you want to do game design, just read Wanderhome. That'll change your life, honestly. But Wanderhome uses token system. There's no dice involved, so it's different from Caltrop, but what you can do as a means of exchange, but like narrative exchange. It's not like, oh, these tokens, at least in Wanderhome, tokens don't represent gold or anything. It's more like, oh, you gain a token because you did something the hard way instead of the easy way, and then you can spend the token to do something that affects the narrative. So it's more of like narrative resources. And I think in this game it could be like when you do something selfless, or it really depends on
make a concession,
what you want to say. And then you could gain tokens that way. Depends on what you want to say about tragedy, right? Because so like in the Caltrop Core SRD, I ask like, what's the core gameplay loop, and then what does this loop say about your values? Because it's gonna say something. If you gain tokens by making a concession or being selfless, you are rewarding a certain type of behavior, right? And so you are clearly saying that these are good behaviors and I'm encouraging these. You could also do it where you explore how tragedy makes us worse, and you can maybe have a temptation thing where, if you steal from someone, you can gain tokens, but you lose, you take a -1 moving forward when you deal with that group again.
Right.
And a -1 in a D4 system is huge, right? That's like a -5 in D20 system. So it really, a lot of it depends. And I don't know if everyone feels this way, because I have not read a lot of game design stuff. I learned by doing and seeing what other people do. But I do think this comes from when you write short stories and fiction, novels, poetry, the way a story ends, right, has a huge say on the values of the person, right? The end puts everything that you've said in the book into perspective, and whether or not you know it, you are communicating some sort of value or some sort of thesis in your game. I think Brandon Lee Mulligan has talked about this as well, where your values are going to show up in your games, whether you like it or not. So it pays to be conscious of that, right? So how do you want to handle tragedy? What do you want to say about tragedy in this game?
Yeah, I was thinking that there are a few games that my friend Fiona has played that were kind of like solo RPGs during the pandemic for her podcast, What Am I Rolling? And one comes to mind where you're the last survivor on a ship, and there's like this alien that's coming to eat you, and basically it's almost impossible to win. So I almost wonder, like, if the theme is tragedy, the beginning of the game is you describing the airship that just like crashes and burns, and then you play, and that's just like everyone knows that that's how it's going to end up, but everyone is still trying to cling desperately to hope, just in case something goes right.
What if the game is the airship is crashing, and you're deciding what to do as the airship is crashing?
Yeah, you could do that too. Yeah, so many options.
That's really cool. There's like 5 different games here, and they just come off with tragedy, steampunk. Like there's so much you can do, and even if someone has done a steampunk tragedy game, which definitely exists, maybe they're not gonna. I don't think they'll probably have the same voice or the same thing to say as you would about tragedy, and they haven't had your experiences. and maybe you need to make a game about letting go. Maybe you need to make a game about holding on. Who knows?
Who knows?
Like, that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah. That was just a lot of fun to sit back and let Lex work and think and show me what they're capable of. You could tell that they've just spent a lot of time considering lots of different types of games and ways you can play and lots of different scenarios, and just being able to come up with a whole different style of game off the top of their head is really what makes them a good game designer. And yeah, you should check out Caltrop Core. If you haven't already, you should go write your own game. It's really easy, and it's a great way to kind of get your feet wet in the game design world. And that's really why Lex designed Caltrop Core and why they set it up the way that it is. I mentioned this, but I set up my own game, which is called Dig, kind of influenced by the movie Holes, which was a ton of fun. But yeah, without Lex's work on the front end of designing Caltrop Core is an easy way to make your games come to life, I wouldn't have tried that. So yeah, this is me telling you that you should go, if you've ever wanted to write a game, this is an easy way to make a super low stakes one with minimal work and see if you like it. Next up, we've got Keith Amon, the author of The Monsters Know What They're Doing, among other books. I know has a one coming out very soon about your lair, designing layers, and kind of how someone would use their lair as a way for you to research and think about your big bad evil guys or whoever else might be designing large buildings that help protect them and their assets and that kind of thing. So yeah, without further ado, let's hear from Keith. To start off, do we want to limit ourselves to a specific range of levels of players, or do we want to roll randomly for that as well?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see where it takes us.
Okay. Then we'll start off with that, which is just roll a d20 and let's see what level of party we've got here. We'll assume 4 players, right. Just kind of standard party size.
I rolled 4.
Okay, a level 4 party. Okay, now a d4 for whether it's going to be easy, medium, hard, or deadly.
All right, this one's going to be easy. This is a 1.
Okay, an easy encounter. All right, next, a d8 for where we're setting this encounter.
All right, I rolled a 2.
Okay, that's going to be forest. All right, and then it's how many monsters we want to add. So I'm thinking it's kind of like got a minimum and a maximum selection. So let's stick to like a D8 and just see where that lands us for max monsters.
All right, I got 3.
Okay. So you can add up to 3 monsters, and you're designing something relatively easy for 4 level 4 characters in a forest. So what comes to mind if you're going to put something together for this?
Well, I think that if it's going to be that easy, I'm going to play it for comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking for something a little bit silly. Silly plus forest leads me to think maybe goblins, but like more of the clownish variety rather than the deadly variety.
Right, jump from behind the tree and stab you in the back variety.
Or maybe Fae. Fae would be good, silly plus forest. They're level 4. Depending on the forest, level 4 would be a good level at which to have an encounter with a unicorn.
It could.
Or maybe a couple of centaurs. I guess we decided there are going to be 3 of these, right?
Up to 3, yeah.
Up to 3, yeah. There's not going to be 3 unicorns, definitely, but maybe 3 centaurs. Satyrs.
Ooh.
Yeah. We're going to take 3. They're going to be going through the forest, and there's going to be some satyrs drinking around a fire. We'll see we'll see where the social interaction takes it from there. That would be a good fun one. Now, if I wanted to make it a little bit darker, I noticed that Vine Blight also falls into this range. So if I wanted to just give a sense of we're entering a section of the forest that's spookier here, and I just wanted to give them a taste of the spooky before they're facing any real challenges. Vine blights would be good for that.
A sign of what's to come. Yeah. I love blights.
Harbinger.
Yeah. Okay, so would it be like they bed down for the night and then all of a sudden the vine blights, ambush them, so to speak? Or would it be something else, do you think?
No, I think they would just... I think this is something that happens near the beginning of the adventuring day. They just stumble through some vine blight territory, and the vine blights... do they have natural camouflage?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Like that? Yeah, they've got false appearance. When they're motionless, they're indistinguishable from a tangle of vines. So I think they're just hiding out amid the foliage, and
they're hacking through,
PCs,
having to bushwhack through, and then all of a sudden...
The PCs are marching through, and suddenly the entangling plants are growing up around them, and they're getting tangled up, and then the vine blights move in to strike.
Excellent. I love it.
So that was really fun because, Keith wrote the whole book, The Monsters Know What They're Doing, to kind of cement and show everybody his process when he's thinking about the monsters, what they might think, how they might react, how they might tactically act in combat. And it was just really cool to sit there and listen to him think through a random scenario and decide how he might approach that with the knowledge he's got. So another fantastic guest, a really cool view into someone's expertise and how they utilize it, and a really good template for you as the DMs and GMs out there to go figure out how to beef up and make your encounters a lot more interesting. I find that a lot of people say their groups don't like combat because it's boring, but I think there's definitely ways that you can have fun combat, and Keith really highlights how to make it interesting every single time. All right, next up, we've got another heavy hitter in the game design industry, and that is James Introcaso.
Okay, this is interesting. The theme is conspiracy, and the setting is modern day. So we don't have to use modern day necessarily, but it could be fun.
Yeah, I think we should. Let's do it. The dice have spoken.
They have. Next, all I need is a D10 from you, and if you don't have one, I've got one to roll.
I can definitely roll a D10 here. Okay, I have rolled a 4.
Okay, the goal is to discover a new planet, or maybe it's the act of discovering a new planet from the random table here. Okay, so it is a conspiracy, it's modern setting, and it's about discovering a new planet in some way. So, where do we want to start?
I mean, I think if we're in modern day, whenever there are modern day things, I am a fan of conspiracy, modern day. Let's jump into what people know, right? The more accessible your game is, the easier it is for people to get in. Let's start in Earth, the real world, right? That's where we're going to be. It's modern day. It's the real world. Let's go for that, because I like the idea of now you got to find a new planet for conspiracy reasons.
Right. Or maybe other people know about the planet, but that's the conspiracy, right? Who knows? Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're assuming that people know what they would know as a resident of our little blue dot here that we all live on. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, conspiracy. What do you think a conspiracy is for finding a new planet? I mentioned one, maybe people know about it and other people don't, but what are some other ideas you got?
Yeah, so one place where my mind went is there is another planet in the solar system that is habitable, right? That people have known about for a long time. Maybe the rich muckety mucks, they know about it because they're gonna get it. They've been trashing our planet. And then they're going to take an Elon Musk rocket over to that world. And that world is where you get all your 5e creatures, right? That's where your dragons and your flumphs and your beholders and things like that are. They're all over in this fantasy world. And maybe you could even tie real world lore, The Hobbit isn't actually fiction. It's J.R.R. Tolkien was a space explorer, and this is a story he pulled from this world. But then people were well, if we sell it as if we edit this after action report and sell it, it will be people will never believe that it was actually a conspiracy. It's gonna, fuel the fire of like, that's not real, that doesn't exist.
Okay, so the rich people of this planet know about another planet. This other planet mirrors the monsters and races that we know as the monsters and races from Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, which is what we're using. Is it something about you're like workers on a spaceship and you end up there and you don't know why you're there and you've got to figure it out? Or is it like, what do you think is kind of like the story arc we want to tell here?
I like to go for epic and compelling often, and I wonder if the story arc is like, things are bad on Earth, right? It's modern day, and things have gotten bad. Take your pick of bad thing that could be destroying the Earth. War, climate change, some sort of natural disaster. Maybe that super volcano in Yellowstone finally goes off or whatever. Maybe it's a fantasy thing, right? Like maybe something from that world has come to our world, right? Necromancy, magic, or just the encroach of magic in general has caused all sorts of problems. And so now I think people want to know you could save humanity if you can figure out where this world is and get the resources from rich folk to be able to transport everybody. And I think part of that is like, you need to either convince or you're fighting against the rich folk. And maybe then there's also like, hey, all these people who are on this planet, like, they need to be convinced too. They have their own problems, their own dangers. It could almost be a 2-phase thing where it's like, first you got to get to the planet, boom, second movie, oh no, now you got to survive.
Yeah. And all of your technology doesn't work, and that's why you've got to rely on the classes of D&D instead, right? You figure
exactly,
out you've got
right?
magic, but also your guns and your GPS and your whatever else, it isn't useful here. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, and it gives you a chance, too, to say, like, in the real world, maybe you start to uncover magic and things like that because this secret elite conspiracy is, wielding magic and stuff from this world, right? The reason your family has remained rich is because, well, they're using, spells to cure people, and now they run a pharmaceutical firm and like that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you could really get in deep in this way.
You could. Wow. All right. I like that. So you got to figure out how to get there. Then once you get there, you've got to figure out, number one, how to get everybody else there. And number two, how to convince the people who live there that it makes the most sense and that it's for the greater good kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You don't have anywhere else to go. And maybe, again, right, like you might get there and if it's a medieval fantasy style world, there might be some sort of dramatic good versus evil clash where the good people are like, listen, you can stay with us, but we are getting our butts kicked in this war and we need your help, that sort of thing where you can fight then alongside with these other folk. And maybe even, maybe when you get there, you can switch character sheets around and now you're playing people from the planet who are dealing with the outsiders, right? Like there's a lot of fun ways you could do that.
Great stuff from James. He's got dozens of game design credits to his name, including work for Wizards of the Coast and for Matt Colville's MCDM Productions. But you can tell why, right? He's smart, he's sharp, he's got tons of ideas that are constantly swirling around in his head, and he can easily pull some out for, a few random dice rolls, or I guess some random clicks that we did on a webpage. So yeah, you can tell James is super passionate about what he does, and he's really, really competent at it too. And really, really fun conversation that I had with him. All right, next we've got my friend Sam from Role Playing and Role Playing. He's also been doing a fun series this summer called Spontaneum, which is basically whole one-shots that are completely random. The setting is random, what the goal is random. The DM doesn't really know what's going on until like some stuff gets determined or rolled. And then all of the characters that are playing are also random, I believe, like randomly chosen and rolled and stuff. So it's like all completely by random generators. A few of my guests have actually been players on it throughout the summer. I believe Johnny Stanton was one of them. Yeah, a bunch of other fun people. So yeah, you should go check out Spontaneum videos on demand and everything from Sam's channel if you get a chance. But yeah, let's dive in. So to start off, our setting is Western, which is quite appropriate.
Very nice.
along with your second season you guys are doing over at Role Playing and Role Playing. The theme is tragedy, so a tragic Western story here. Now, the character goals. Do you have your dice with you? And if not, I can just roll one for you. You got some?
Of course I do.
No one yet has said, "Oh, I don't have my dice near me." Everyone always has them. So,
What am I pulling out?
so roll a d8 for me.
D8.
D10, sorry, D10, and it's going to tell us what the goal is of this game.
5.
To explore the unexplored. Okay, so we've got a Western. It's going to be a tragedy, and the kind of overarching goal of the players to start, at least, is to explore the unexplored. So, Sam, with those in mind, how would you start kind of putting together the skeletons of what will be this epic campaign we're going to play?
I suppose I want to ask a constraining question.
Yes.
When it comes to exploring the unexplored, is that more of a physical thing where we are finding a place and it leads us to somewhere? Or is it exploring parts of ourselves, parts of our minds that we haven't explored? Perhaps redemption or revenge or something like that, something more abstract.
I say go for the abstract if you want to. Yeah, that sounds... I mean, you could go both ways, so yeah, take what seems more interesting.
Whew, okay. So, I guess, in terms of exploring the unexplored, I mean, a Western tragedy, what comes to mind immediately for me, I'm a big Western fan, but for Western tragedy, I think of The Unforgiven. Phenomenal film, really, really dark. And I think about just, I mean, for me, a Western is more than just a setting. You know, it's not just post-Civil War in the usual southwestern part of the United States, what have you, dust, deserts. It's like a concept. It's these simple story beats, these simple plots with complex characters that are trying to realize something about themselves, such as redemption, revenge, what have you. I mean, Logan, the Wolverine movie, could be considered a Western. No Country for Old Men is a Western.
Definitely.
Hell or High Water, definitely a neo-Western.
A few more examples that are recent are like The Mandalorian and Boba Fett, even though they're based on a desert planet, and it kind of gives that flavor. Those are considered space westerns, you know, so you're right, it doesn't have to be a specific setting to be a Western.
But to keep it simple, let's have it be a desert area. Let's make it that it's a disk planet, like Discworld. It's like a desert disk. And the reason why there's no water is because it's all flown off the edges of this disk, because there's no way to constrain it.
I love it.
So we have this sandy disk with barely any water left. And there's a legend of a supposed wellspring, because most of the water comes from off-world. It's an exploitive system from a disk that has managed to build walls around the edges to keep in their water, which allows them to recycle it and what have you, and export it to this one, which is, of course, very poor because it's not rich in said resources. And it's very, I'd say, Mad Max-esque. I wouldn't go as far as an apocalypse, but there are definitely these dystopian groups and these relationships between them that are very tense, if not overtly hostile. And I think our characters are simply trying to find this spring, because they have lost all other semblance of hope. There's nothing else for them. The price of water is getting too high, and in a last-ditch effort to find something they don't even know exists, it might actually save them. The tragedy is it doesn't. It doesn't exist. But out of this tragedy, out of the fact that this spring never existed in the first place, they grow closer to each other in this trial by fire. And they come to realize that the issue isn't the water not being here. The issue is the water needing to come from somewhere else. It's the system. And they finally learn that in order to fight that, they have to band together. They have to act as a unified group in order to combat that. So that's my off the dome desert disc thing. So yeah, so that's what I got.
All right, Sam did a great job here with the prompts that I gave him. You just so happened that he's a big fan of Westerns and that we kind of landed on something that is Western influenced. But I think he thought of it in an interesting way and kind of put twists on it that maybe I wouldn't have thought of or wouldn't have expected. But you can tell that he's definitely a good storyteller and is constantly thinking of interesting ways to craft stories to tell. So well done, Sam. All right, next up, we've got my friend Kyle, the DM of Bombarded, and they are currently on a break. They have finished their whole first season, so it's ready to be binged by you if you haven't checked it out yet. But yeah, Kyle is about to tackle my barrage of popular music artists and what race and class they might play in D&D. Pretty fun. So, first one, got to start with him. We're going to say David Bowie. What do you think?
Oh, David Bowie. I feel like, I mean, of course, since they're all musicians, I'm going to try to stray away from them just being bards.
Maybe they just have a few levels, right? Just like your players do.
Yeah. We'll say obligatory bardness for these people, but I feel like David Bowie would be a celestial druid of the stars.
Ooh, I love it.
I think that's what I would go with.
He's a star man, after all.
He's a star man.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, Ziggy Stardust, he's totally a druid. You're right. Okay. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, the Beatles. And you could just pick one, or you could pick one for each of them.
I think I'd go with George Harrison, and he'd probably be a half-elf monk of the, what is it, the Fist of the Sun? Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, because of his Hare Krishna affiliations. Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely.
Love it. And he wrote Here Comes the Sun.
Yeah, I believe so.
Did.
Yeah.
Sweet. Love it. Okay, Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks. Oh, Stevie Nicks.
Also, a lot of these are old, so apologies to the listeners who don't know who these people are, but I like old music, so get
same
used to
here.
it.
And it gives your listeners an opportunity to go and look up these artists and find their wonderful music. I think Stevie Nicks would probably be an elven. I think she would just be straight bard, honestly.
Yeah.
Just like, and full on entertainment background. I actually got to see Fleetwood Mac a couple years ago.
Really?
And they still laid it. They didn't have Lindsey Buckingham with them, but they still delivered a great show. I just remember having a good time. Me, Allie, a couple of friends of ours went, and it was, my jaw was dropped. I was just like, dang.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
My famous claim to fame for old school music is I got to see Paul McCartney here in Utah, and then Earth, Wind, and Fire was pretty fun too, as far as like,
oh heck yeah,
like musicians that are still rocking today. Okay, Rivers Cuomo.
Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, right? I'm not much of a Weezer listener.
Okay, we can skip it if you want.
I'll you know what? I'll take a jab at it. I feel like Rivers Cuomo might be I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna say Tiefling Warlock. Does that seem right?
I think he's probably sold his soul to someone to write all those catchy books.
I would think so. You got to do something to just deliver out those kind of bangers.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, Bob Marley.
Bob Marley. Oh, I feel like Bob Marley would be a Ganassi of some type. Yeah, maybe like an air Ganassi, or maybe a water Ganassi. You know what? I'll leave it open. I'll leave it open to Ganassi, and I would think that he would be a ranger, just like, kind of scouting out, the forefront, because I know a lot of his music kind of paved a way for things going into ska and, that whole genre and everything that led down the line from it. So yeah, I'm going to go with a Ganassi ranger.
Yeah, I love it. All right, the last one is Beyonce.
Ooh. Oh, that's putting me on the spot. Is it Queen Bee? I gotta tread carefully here.
Yes, you don't want to get the beehive mad.
I do not want to get the beehive mad. You're absolutely right.
I wonder what the Venn diagram of my show listeners and Beyonce fans is, though. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you might be okay.
All right, cool. Then, I mean, I'm gonna have to probably go with. There's so many races now that I'm trying to think about them all.
So many.
And I don't want to lean on, of course, being a queen. Like, I'll probably just go Celestial again.
Yeah.
Probably say Celestial, and since she's Queen Bee, Druid.
Yeah.
Just Druid, just able to summon all the bees. Get the beehive going.
Yeah. Isn't there like a swarm druid or something like that?
Swarm Druid. There we go.
I don't remember its name, but
Swarm.
it does like they do like swarm stuff. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm honestly a little offended that Kyle doesn't listen to Weezer because I thought we were friends, I thought that we connected on that level. So, yeah, unfortunate. Well, all kidding aside, I think he did a good job. I have no idea how I would have answered these questions, to be honest. So this is a good example of me throwing something at someone when I am clearly not qualified to do it myself. But, I'm the one asking the questions, and he came on my show. So, but yeah, Kyle did an awesome job. If I had known that Stranger Things was going to make Kate Bush a big deal again, I would have asked him about Kate Bush. So maybe I will tweet at him and ask him what he thinks. And you can all check that out from the Twitter sphere. All right, next up, we've got Grant Howitt of Rowan Rook and Deckard, prolific game designer, churning out one-page games as well as longer-form, bigger deal TTRPGs like Heart and Spire. So yeah, let's check out what Grant has to share with us.
All right. So just tell me when to stop. Stop. Oh, okay. The theme is addiction. The setting is ancient Rome. If you don't like it, we can always do another one. But
we can work it out. We can work it out.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Now the character goal, if you would roll that D10.
I got a 5.
Okay. Become a leader.
All right. I've got something roughly around this. So, like the idea of ancient Rome, when we think of ancient Rome, I like the idea of sort of politicking and internecine conflict between houses and sort of like performing for the favor of the emperor. So let's say there's this sort of foppish, useless emperor, and you play the Senate who are trying to operate around. Now, you're trying to become a leader, and we have the theme of addiction. One of my favorite things to do is to confuse magic and drugs. So we are going to be we're looking at Solomon-style demons, so like King Solomon-grade demons, which are granting power to you and your followers. You'd either play individual members of the Senate who are competing against each other, and we'd probably take it to a diceless place and have that as more kind of a microscope back and forth. Oh, who are you going to ally with? Blah, blah, blah. Or we go Blades in the Dark style, and you're playing this one brand new senator and his 3 occultist friends who are trying to make their way.
Oh. So you got one face, and then the 3 friends are kind of the influences or the ones that do the dirty work behind the scenes.
And I think that could be fun, like especially if we have the sort of demonic pact thing, or like this, we have the idea of signing a contract, which is more powerful than the simple law. The idea that, right, you've divided this senatorship between the 4 of you. This guy is the face, but we are all equally responsible, and we are all going to benefit from this. And we've sold our souls to whoever we want. And I think we've got something interesting there as well, combining. If we're going ancient Rome, then we can go with the stolen Greek gods rather than Christianity, and then have those stolen Greek gods versus paint the Ars Goetia as insidious and infectious and simply more powerful and more prevalent, to have these demons who can grant you absolute power. And you'd play until, I imagine the culmination would be some sort of, we have one scene per season, and then it'd be the Grand Summer Games, and you get to have some sort of ancient Roman brutality.
Again, you can see genius at work here. Random stuff that I've just thrown at Grant live while recording, and immediately he's got a fantastic idea for a one-page role-playing game. And honestly, that's why he's so good at churning them out, right? He created Goblin Quest, a bunch of really popular ones, but he has, I want to say more than 100 more already on his page ready for you to go check out. I think you can go buy them on his Patreon or other places. A place where you can check out a lot of games written by Grant Howitt is from my friend Fiona's podcast, What Am I Rolling? She's been on my show as well, but she has tons of games that she's played through that are written by Grant, including games that she's run and games that she's played in and other people have run. Honey Heist is one of them. There's one about goats doing crimes. There's one called Jason Statham's Big Vacation. She did Goblin Quest. I'm sure I'm forgetting some that he's written, but she's played a bunch of them, and they're all really fun. Jason Statham's Big Vacation, just like A+ name right there. Best name I can ever think of for an RPG, honestly. And so everything else pales in comparison to that. Well done, Grant. Really fun to chat with him. Thank you so much for listening to this special edition of How Not to DM, the Quickfire Chaos compilation for the game design and other stuff. This is part 1. There's so much of it and so much audio content that I've had to split it into 2 episodes. So stay tuned for episode 2 next week, or you can join my Patreon and get access to that a little bit early. So yeah, perks there for Patreon members. All right, a couple things to remind you as we're wrapping up here. Number 1, Season 3 kicks off on September 14th. That's Wednesday, September 14th. Look for guest announcements on September 12th. Really excited about Season 3 coming up. You guys should be too. Number 2, got those guest appearances that I've made on Next to Nothing podcast, so go check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Also on Daniela's show coming up here, which will be on Thinking Critically, so check that out if you get a chance. And then lastly, like I said, Matthew and I are putting together something really fun we're excited about. We're probably going to be kickstarting it soon so that people can get their hands on it. And excited for that too, so be watching my page for announcements wherever you kind of get your news from me. Check out those social medias and I'll try to keep you up to date. All right, that is all. Now for some thank yous. Thank you to, number 1, all of those guests who appeared on Season 2. Had tons of fun chatting with you. Thanks for playing along with me with these mini games. I know they're not always easy, but I think everyone really nailed it this time. You could tell that they're all really good and confident at what they do, and what makes them so good at their particular pieces of the whole TTRPG puzzle. So a lot of fun to chat with them, to pick their brains, and to see the masters at work, as it were. Thank you to Arcane Anthems for making that track, which plays underneath all of the Quickfire Chaos segments. So check out Arcane Anthems. Got a link in my episode notes for more of his work if you want to check that out. Thanks to Daniel Zombo for the intro and outro music. That's a track called Game Over, really catchy. Love the kind of old school gamer vibes. And then lastly, thanks to Matt and JR from T4C Studios for helping me edit and produce this podcast. Big thanks to them. They've been helping edit and produce all of Season 2. I'll be continuing to work with them for Season 3. We actually have some other fun stuff that we're working on as a studio there, so we should be kind of announcing some more official shows and content that we're going to be creating. Yeah, so check those out. Also, if you are a video or audio creator, podcast or YouTube videos or anything like that, you can hire Matt and JR and the rest of the team at T4C Studios. They have 2 companies. One is called videoeditors.online. The other is called podcasteditors.online. So if you need anything edited, they do a fantastic job, good with communication, very familiar with kind of the TTRPG space. So if you happen to be creating that kind of content, then they're ready to rock. They're very familiar with the games as well, and they are good at their jobs. So I can't thank them enough for their help with this last season and with these compilation episodes and with the upcoming season. Really excited for you guys to hear it. And, I couldn't be doing it and churning out all the content I do without their help. So big shout out to them. And I think that is it. So you won't hear from me unless you listen to those guest spots until Season 3, which is coming very soon, September 14th. Make sure to tune in. But until then, roll some nat 20s for me.